Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Ray Martindale.
I'm Austin Licker.
And this week we are continuing the journey on our Jodie Foster 5. The previous film we covered was Taxi Driver. The future films we will cover are The Silence of the Lambs, Maverick, and Contact. But today we are talking about The Accused. It's a 1988 film where Jodie Foster won an Academy Award for Best Actress, her first of 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress. And this is a story about a low-income woman who spends one night in a bar after a bad argument or breakup with a boyfriend, and certainly gets more than she bargains for, because by the end of the night she ends up getting raped. And what has probably become the most famous part of this movie, I think there are probably people out there that remember that this movie had that rape scene in it more than they actually probably remember the title of the film. Along the way, it's a journey where blossoming friendship grows between her being the proletariat and the bourgeois, which would be an attorney who is taking up her case to fight for her rights. The plot takes us through a series of... it ends up being sort of a legal thriller where at first we're put the rapist away, but they don't get put away for rape. They get put away for, reckless endangerment charge?
It was an assault label, but the lawyers made them take out the word rape.
They'll take out the word rape. So they got the punishment they would have had for rape without the label of rape. This does not work to the character Jodie Foster is playing, Sarah Tobias's character. She wants them to be called rapists, but you can't charge someone twice for the same crime, so the lawyer tries to put away the people that cheered on the rape. And that's essentially the plot of the movie. There's not really much into it other than that. It's certainly an interesting film, and one that is sort of a product of the times, should we say. Austin, what do you think about this movie?
It's a really interesting movie, because this is a film from 1988, and here we are in 2017, and the law around rape cases is still extremely difficult. As we kind of keep seeing in the news, we see like the infamous Stanford rapist, the swimmer, who there's a whole controversy that basically you're not seeing the punishment really kind of match these crimes.
Of course.
And I've always kind of seen rape as it's like a murder crime, but there's no dead body. You live through it.
Sure.
And it's a lot harder for our legal system to kind of recognize those elements, because there's not a dead body on the ground. There's someone else with their testimony that can contract the murderer/rapist testimony. It's a really difficult thing.
It's a difficult thing to prove, too, because you have one person that's going to say, well, I didn't rape it, and then you basically have the testimony of 2 different individuals if there are no other witnesses there.
Plus, societal norms and all these elements. There's all these things going to make this is still a difficult subject in 2017. And so for a lot of this film, I was really impressed by how relevant it still was.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that as well. There was no way would recent rape stories that you hear about, on the news or otherwise, there's no way you can't not think of those when you're watching this film. And I was struck by the same thing you were. Well, this movie is almost 30 years old, and it's very, very relevant. Maybe, I don't know, in some ways more so because there's so much information out there now that we may not have known in 1988.
And that's where, like, in certain scenes like that really hold up well. Like when you have the 3 men who are being accused of rape, they have like really expensive lawyers, and they're the ones trying to get out of the actual rape charge, get out of this. And a lot of their arguments are things we've heard before in films and TV and in real life, which is, they're just the good old boys. They've never had a single assault charge. And the response is, bullshit. It doesn't matter.
Or she was asking for it.
She was asking for it.
She was drunk.
She was drunk. And so much of that, I think, then becomes another kind of... Because in many ways, it's just a John Grisham what if. The idea of going after the ones cheering on in order to basically get on the record that those guys were rapists, which is a really clever way. It was really kind of interesting legal what if. But I really like Jodie Foster in this movie because, she's an incredible actress. But she took this character who the movie begins it actually feels like a horror from the beginning. You get the opening credits.
It has the synthesized drums, the boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. Like when something suspenseful is happening.
And you just see this bar, and there's nothing. It's at night. It's just a bar. It's a normal looking bar. But because of the filming, it just seems like this is like Freddy Krueger's house.
Something horrible is about to happen here. Yeah.
And then you see her running out, screaming, desperately trying to get help, and this is immediately after what happened.
Right. And all of that works really well, minus the 80s synthesized drums. Sure. Anytime you're watching like an 80s film and you see that stuff, the thing that I always keep in mind is this is what they thought music was going to sound like forever. Mm-hmm. So I don't really blame them for using it nonstop. Sure. But it has that. It has a kid, running out of the bar on the phone and calling the police on a payphone saying there's been a rape and there's been a rape. It's a very impressive shot where it's, and a shot that was probably ahead of his time, where it's showing the bar, and then it's a time lapse, and then from the time lapse, it becomes a tracking shot, which that's pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty neat. Now, certainly it wasn't the first one to do something like that, but to open a film that way and then to set the scene with this very macabre, like creepy feeling about something awful happening here, it works really well. In fact, it probably works better than at any other point in the movie. Constantly, this movie, after that, will take 2 steps forward and take 1 step back as far as the subject matter being very good, the performances being very good, and then what was that scene? Or what was that line? Yeah. And then it takes a step back. It literally juggles that all through the film, which is why I think, you look at it, you say, this movie won Best Actress, and by the way, wasn't nominated for another Academy Award.
Which also is a weird Oscar thing. There's like a really long list of movies that are up for Best Actress, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Like every year, it's always like 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. It's a weird thing. But something that was really interesting about so the film begins that way, and aside from the very big flashback we'll deal with later, everything we see of Jodie Foster really is post this horrible attack.
Right.
So it's really fascinating the way Jodie Foster plays this character, because we see just the immediate scenes after this, when she's with the police, and she's with these 2 women police officers who are just kind of berating her with questions. Mm-hmm. And you're just kind of... Jodie Foster plays it so well because she is traumatized. Mm-hmm. She's in shock about what's happening.
That's some of her best stuff in the movie, I think.
So, yeah. And you have her recognizing that these people are supposed to be on my side. Their bedside manner is horrific. Mm-hmm. But you see her choose not to argue. And it's this amazing thing of her just trying to get the information out without upsetting anybody, trying to get it out, it needs to be done. And what's then amazing is that you watch Jodie Foster. She's still traumatized the whole movie, but you get to see her have moments where her character gets to return to the kind of the life before, and you see more and more of who she is as a character, who she's always been as a character for all these years, and who she is as a character now. I really kind of saw her almost decide, it's almost like she made a prequel in her mind of who this character has had drama with before, and how she's now. Something like, I'll be vague. I kept thinking about Michael C. Hall in 6 Feet Under. To be vague, because I know you haven't seen the whole series, but something very traumatizing happens to him beyond working a funeral parlor every episode. And then you see Michael C. Hall take that character he's played for 4 seasons and now play that season who is severely traumatized. And you basically get to watch Jodie Foster do that without the 4 seasons prior. And so I love seeing who Sarah was prior to this, and how this kind of punk attitude, but it's really, really good performance.
Well, the character is the movie.
Yes.
And it's a shame that the movie never really realized that. Because when Sarah Tobias, which is the name Jodie Foster's, when she's on screen, everything is very, very poignant, and everything's wonderfully realized, and everything is crystal clear. when she's not there, the movie, except for one scene, which we'll get to later, when she's not there, the movie seems muddled and confusing and weird. Because there's this, she's the star of the movie, but this movie is a shared, like, I mean, the story's about these two women too. The prosecutor, Catherine Murphy, plays. Her name's Catherine Murphy. She's Kelly McGillis. I've never seen her in another film.
She's in some Tom Cruise movie, right?
I don't know. I've never seen her in another film.
I don't know. I'll think about it later.
And she's really dry in this movie, and she's dry because the character's dry. But there's this whole thing about her career and, like, advancing in her career and then coming to that fork in the road. Do I stand up for this women's sort of issue, or do I say, no, my career is more important? And it's all really muddled, and it kind of weighs the movie down in a way I don't think it intended. All the scenes are shot very brightly. Everything's really kind of colorful. All the characters are really cookie cutter and cliche, that from the detective to the boss to her in some ways. And it just, really, it's like a burnt side of a pizza or something. Like, it's just bad stuff, like, in general, from the way it doesn't fit the movie tonally anytime we shift focus away from Sarah. When it's on Sarah, everything, it works and everything makes sense by and large, and that may have a lot to do with Jodie Foster as well, but I don't think it's a coincidence what that opening scene was and how it sets this awful feeling, and when she runs out and the way we feel that and we feel breathless and we know something horrible has happened, doesn't fit with about 40% of this movie that almost feels disjointed and different and weird. So I'm of kind of two minds about this film. It's like Jonathan Kaplan, who directed this film, I feel like at times, I mean, he was either on his A game or he was phoning it in. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like, and part of that's the writing too. Sure. But a lot of the scary stuff kind of goes right out the window, and the creepiness of the whole thing goes right out the window when you literally have a villain in this film who's like a mustache twirling villain. There's nothing scary about these people. They're goofy in a bad way. I don't know. Am I off on a tangent? Because I know I get there sometimes, but I just felt like the movie had grand ideals that it nailed. It just didn't nail any of the little stuff.
Well, there are a couple of little things that did work for me. I mean, I agree the movie is a bit all over the place, but there are a few moments when Kelly McGillis and Jonathan Kaplan did work well together without Jodie Foster, which is maybe about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
There's one interesting scene when she goes to the bar, and it's before they decide, she comes up with the idea to go after the other people who are at the bar. Because we've now heard the story from Jodie Foster and kind of heard all the testimony, we now have an image in our mind of what went down. Mm-hmm. So I really like the moment which is in the bar, just kind of seeing what this bar is like, and it's active that day. It's not closed. You're seeing other people there, and when she sees the pinball machine, which that's where she was attacked on, mm-hmm. there is kind of like a chill between this kind of close up the pinball machine and her. I thought that worked really well, and then to not only have that, but then to have the camera and her kind of look up and recognize that has this like horrible sexist image.
Right. No.
So, like, that worked well. That's a nice
That
moment.
does work well. But those scenes tied directly into the rape. Yes. It didn't tie into Catherine Murphy's career. Like that. But I think you bring up a good point, because the film, when it was, I mean, it would have these strokes of genius and almost existential thinking about how women are viewed in society, mm-hmm. and not just on the level as it is with Sarah Tobias, who's actually raped by gang raped in a bar, but also like what type of society are we where we can produce individuals that would make the conscious decision to do this horrible act.
Right. And
there are little nuggets and details that exist throughout, including the image on the pinball machine, which ties directly into it. It's like this Barbie doll looking drawn figure with enormous breast, and she's drawn super sexually, and this is the machine the woman's raped on. You're surrounding these men with these images, looking at these women, treating these women like objects, literally to where it's on a pinball machine and it's supposed to be a fun and it's a game. And all these things seem harmless at a small level, but the movie was saying, what are the greater risk or complications involved in a sex-driven, crazy-ass society that views women as discardable pleasures? And that's great theming, and that exists really well when it decides to theme that way, and when it decides to be about that, because it's not like Catherine Murphy, and it keeps that's the character's name of the lawyer. Mm-hmm. It's not like she's really seen treated that way.
No, but there are. I think what we're saying is that there's always this kind of the patriarchy around. I would say that the.
See, I think that works better in Silence of the Lambs than it does
we'll get to that next week. Absolutely.
Yeah, but they actually keep with it the entire film. This movie doesn't do that.
But there's a few moments when the two of them worked well together, because I liked it when Catherine Murphy was talking to Sarah Tobias, and she's kind of asking all these questions, not on the stand, but just kind of the interviews, just kind of get everything ready. And she's asking questions. I really liked it. It happened about twice in the film when the questions became really offensive and really attacking. Mm-hmm. To the point where even I'm on the couch going, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then Jodie Foster's character responds that way, where like you saw where she is like cooperating about like this horrifying thing that happened to her, and she's trying to recount everything she can. But when it gets like really offensive to her, like, what were you wearing? Or something, she gets pissed, and you recognize that Catherine Murphy is doing this because, and she says, this is what they're going to do.
They're going to do it this way.
So when you realize that like there are these moments when you're actually not seeing Catherine Murphy's like personal view, but you're seeing her be a really good lawyer in a really flawed system, that was when I liked the connection between the two of them. And I like at one point when the questioning got so much that Jodie Foster's character fires her, and the Catherine Murphy goes back to her car, and Jodie Foster really brilliantly acts. She just kind of walks over and says, "Okay, I'm sorry," and gets in the back of the car, because you have her character is so fantastic and doesn't like to put up by his shit, but also she's smart enough to recognize when she has an ally, and this is the ally she has.
And I think she's also smart enough to recognize that, and she may not want to confront this, but there's an issue about burden of proof here. Mm-hmm. She knows that she'd made comments about sleeping with men that night publicly. She knows that she was drunk. She knows that she doesn't like getting called out on her alcohol problem or the fact that she was smoking weed that night. She's withholding information that she knows may come out in the trial. Now, none of this meant she deserved to get raped, and she knows that. But as a lawyer, you want to know everything. You want to know what they're going to know, and you're going to want to know what you're going to be defending against, and she's holding back from that. And the way Sarah is internalizing these things is, you're saying I'm not raped. I wasn't raped. This stuff is unimportant because I was raped. And she's saying, no, they're going to be saying this. And that is interesting.
And that was, like, to me, the strongest elements of the movie. It shows how fucked up and how unfair this system is, to the point where it's ridiculous that what you're wearing, what you're doing that night, what joke you made would make some people say, well, I mean, of course then you're going to get raped. That is just a horrible thing. Sure. Yeah. And to watch them try to fight against that, and then to see it actually play out in the courtroom, it just fucking makes me angry as I keep swearing more on this podcast than I know I've done. Because that's when the film works for me. Because the film works at maybe not. It only has like one really three-dimensional character, but it's a really kind of interesting discussion at the heart that like very succinctly shows what it takes to do these elements. And yeah, so I mean, we now need to get to the most problematic part of the movie.
Well, there's two I have. One minor one before that.
Let's do the minor one.
Okay, so because the big one's going to be the big one. So there's a scene in this movie that sort of kicks off or instigates the idea that we're going to put behind bars the people that egged on the rape,
right?
Not just the people that are there, as a soliciting a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in the record store and starts getting hit on by a dude, and then it keeps escalating, and then he was like, well, you put on that show in the bar that one night, and then she's like, oh yeah, I did, wait a minute, what? And then he's like, yeah, you were there, and then you realize this is the main guy that cheered on the rape. From there, it turns into the weirdest 80s, mustache twirling villain melodrama crap. It's a goofy scene.
I watched this movie 2 days ago, and I blocked this out on purpose because
that scene's ridiculous.
Well, it starts off so well, though.
Right.
Because in the record store, you see the idea of there's this. I mean, here we are as two dudes talking about this movie and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it has this element where she's just at the record store, and even if she wasn't just traumatized, there's this thing where just men won't go away.
Right.
There is
absolutely.
There's no answer that she can give right now, no matter how kind and nice she's kind of passing him off. This dude may get angry.
Yeah.
This dude won't go away, and just there's just that whole. If it's this world, you just can't feel safe.
And if
anywhere.
it stayed there, contained there, it would have been fine.
So good.
But it goes out to the parking lot. She gets in the car, and this guy's looking in the window, and he's sticking his tongue out at her. And then she tries to drive away, and somehow, for some reason, forgets how to drive a car. And then when she finally gets out, he pulls his truck out and blocks her in, and is like, "Oh, we're gonna go out, baby, ha ha ha!" And then she rams his car twice with. It's all to the all to 80s percussion ridiculousness. The scene is just really bad. If it stayed subtle and creepy like it was in the record store, it was more effective. If she'd have just walked out crying and then fuddling with the keys and trying to drive out of the parking lot, which is what part of the scene was anyway, it would have been great. But it moves from there, and it's just it's bizarro land.
It becomes a really strange action film where this guy... Because the issue with this, and what we're about to get to, is there is a casual sexism that is so toxic, and that men often don't know how toxic it is.
Right.
Because they think it's just a normal thing of oh, she's a pretty girl, the record store owned this, not recognizing she doesn't feel safe anymore.
Yeah,
and you're
exactly, and that's the whole thing with the pinball machine it's all that stuff. And when it stays, it's subtle there, then you're actually making your point. But when it goes larger than that and bigger than that, to where there's an action scene in the parking lot where he's blocking you to get out, at that point you're dumbing it down. You're selling out your point. The whole point is to make an argument against subtle sexism, against rape culture, against a mindset.
Sexism, yeah.
But what that escalates to in the parking lot is for dumb people. It's just a dumb thing. This is for all the stupid people out there that aren't getting the points we're making. Here's the Cliff Notes version, and it just. It really bothers me that scene's in the movie. I wish it wasn't.
And that leads to at the end of the film, there is a bit of a legal triumph where this one guy does the right thing, goes against his friends.
It was the guy that called 911.
Goes against his friends and tells the truth, even when he goes to the jail, which I thought was actually a really good scene.
Yeah,
where one of the rapists is in jail for the 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, by the way, Troy from the Goonies, which is funny because he was in high school. I've only seen this guy in 2 movies. Yeah. He was in high school in 85, and when the Goonies was made, and he was a pervert then. And now he's 88. He plays the college kid that raped the girl. To me, they exist in the same universe.
Yeah.
He's Troy from the Goonies, grew up. The Accused is a sequel to the Goonies. There we go.
That's fair. So we, through his testimony, we now get a full flashback of the rape. And rape scenes are extremely difficult to film.
Sure.
You have to show how horrifying it is, keep it character-based, but also never be exploitive. It's really difficult to do because, like I said earlier, it's a murder with a survivor.
Yes.
And that also means there are survivors out there watching this that can get very no one who has been murdered needs to ever watch a movie about murder because they're dead. It's extremely difficult. And when it's done well, it's when it is effective in the sense of the film. There is a movie called Irreversible that starring Monica Bellucci that has a 10-minute rape scene that is so painful to watch and so just like it's all done in one shot, and it's just the scariest thing in the world. That like I held off watching the movie for like 10 years, and I finally saw it, and it was upsetting as I heard it was. There are ways to do it. Sadly, this was not it, because you hear the stories and you have a kind of idea in your mind what happened, and ultimately, if in reality, whenever someone tells you a story in real life about sexual assault, it's always worse than probably what you're picturing, because you don't want it to ever be as bad as it is. This movie depicted the rape, and it starts off as a horrifying thing, and it never tries to make it titillating, thank God.
No,
but
it
it does
doesn't.
make it, for some bizarre reason, the Thunderdome.
Yes.
There is no question this was a rape, because they're basically chanting rape. They're that close to saying, "We are raping her. High five, we are raping her."
Yeah, it's really disappointing because the whole scene leading up to that works really well.
Yes.
I wish they wouldn't have shown it, just because I think it just works better for any type of legal drama where we don't actually see the crime committed. Just for it's like seeing the shark in Jaws. It's better that we don't, and then when we do, it's like, when it pops up here and there, I think it works more effectively. Not comparing a monster movie to a rape scene, but
no, but it's. I mean, both are. It's the horror you don't want to see, right?
It's the horror you don't want to see, exactly. So it all works up really well because, we know going in, like a Stephen King novel where he'll pop in and say something awful is going to happen in 10 pages, keep reading. Mm-hmm. And like we're seeing her come in the bar that night, we're seeing what she's dressed in, we're seeing how she's acting, we see her friends there, we see the people that we know that were convicted of the reckless endangerment earlier, we start to see them surround, and then one person's talking to you, you start to your ears perk up a little bit, you get paranoid watching the scene.
Well, she's incredible in that scene, because
she's great.
You see it's someone going to a bar.
Yeah.
She goes to a bar and has alcohol. That drink they serve at bars.
Yeah.
Like, she is doing nothing wrong.
No, of course not.
I'm not even, the film isn't even saying that she is, but it is, you're watching this girl do this thing, and it's just, because there's a moment when it turns, and you see the character know it turns, and you see her try to get out of it.
But it turns going 80 miles in one direction to immediately does a 180 in a tenth of a second and goes light speed in the other direction. And that's the problem with it. All the subtle buildup, all the wonderful nuances that they were providing in that scene that just added paranoia little by little by little, because we know what's happening and the characters don't. It's dramatic irony. It works. Mm-hmm. And then, once the rape just starts, and boy, does it just start. And when it starts, it literally turns into a Super Bowl. Like, it turns into... and like you said, it's not titillating, it's not expletive. She's definitely getting raped, and that's all awful.
It's so... yeah.
But it turns into, like, a freaking sporting event to the point where I couldn't believe that the other men in the bar couldn't have noticed what was going on, like in the front.
Well,
like
the thing is, that they knew, but like it
kind of.
There's nothing to like know that this is a.
But there was no plausible deniability here. The guy's standing up there going, "You rape her next. Now your turn to rape her."
They have like stadium seating. They all like different. It's like they're all
the way it's blocked and everything. The only thing that works in this scene is Jodie Foster and who's ever on top of her. All the other stuff, it's bizarro land, and I'm sure for someone
it's
out,
embarrassing.
I think so too. I think it's a cringe-worthy scene, and I don't know if it's a product of the times. I'm sure getting that scene and what Jodie Foster's acting, particularly in that scene, and what that scene's famous for, went a long way in her winning her Academy Award. And I understand I'm speaking from a position of as a white male in America, I get it. But from someone who observes film and loves movies, this scene is tonally off, and it's it's goofy.
Well,
it's goofy.
You know, it's the way the film's setting up. I'm into the film. I'm ready for this scene. It's like, you know, watch Schindler's List. Okay, this is the evacuation scene.
The liquidation.
They said it. It's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be tough. But it's important to watch. That wasn't the case here because Jonathan Kaplan isn't Steven Spielberg, and there are some slow motion shots that are just so goofy. I'm like, I really want to be wincing for a different reason. Mm-hmm. It lets down the film, and
it's cheesy. So, I mean, it just feels that way.
And I need to give a counterpoint because I was talking because I've seen it twice now. Both times I kind of finished thinking there shouldn't have been the flashback. I mentioned this thought to Sarah, who we had on for the Fellowship of the Ring episode. She's my girlfriend, who is a defense attorney, and also spent most of her college papers on like sexual assault in college. So like, why have her on this episode? She didn't want to watch the film this week. She has seen the film before, and so she hasn't seen it in a while, so she can remember how the scene was filmed. But for a narrative reason of like showing it as opposed to just being everyone's testimony, she goes, all of life is really, you get people telling these horrible stories and people not believing it. She goes, it actually is rather relieving to have a film where you get the whole film, people still say, I'm not sure this happened. And then it ends with, fuck you, it did happen. So I actually do respect that point of view of why it should be there narratively. I just wish it was filmed way better.
Yeah, I'd rather the scene not be in there, but if it was going to be in there, it could have been better. I mean,
right.
I don't see how you can argue that. The scene does come off. You said Thunderdome, and I think that's a pretty good analogy because the way the hoopla in that room is just, it's bizarre. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's really bizarre, and it was way more. It was completely not. It wasn't what I was imagining. I don't think anyone at this point in the film wasn't on her side. I'm sure there may have been some stragglers out there, but
they're assholes.
They're assholes, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think anyone wasn't on her side anyway. I mean, might even show the lead up to the event and him grabbing her and putting her on the pinball machine or something, and then the cutting from there, because I thought it all kind of worked from there, and maybe that would make it even more disjointed. But once they start to surround her, it gets weird.
And also there's still the narrative ickiness of like, she testifies, people are like, I don't know. Then the other white guy testifies, and everyone's like, well, case closed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true too. But like in any crime, I'm accusing you of a crime. This is my testimony.
Sure.
That's it. Doesn't need to be rape for that to be problematic.
Right.
You hit me with your car. No, you hit me. That's problematic testimony. So,
right.
And I do get that too.
Yeah.
But part of the film's job would have been doing that better.
Yep.
So. Anyway.
Well, I think that wraps up another edition of Gender Studies with Eric and Austin.
Hey, Jodie Foster's great in this movie.
She is so good in the movie.
She's definitely worth seeing the movie for. And when the movie does get stuff right, it does it very, very, very well.
All the legal elements are really interesting and holds up really
I agree with that, too. Everything in the courtroom works.
So, that is The Accused, and you get it from the library or whatever. But we'll be back next week where we're going to talk about The Silence of the Lambs, that really obscure film. Silence of the Lambs. Until then, you can go leave a comment about this episode at theartofmore.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this movie. It is a movie that is obviously ripe with conversation, and we'd love to continue the conversation there. Quiet week for podcasts at theartofmore.com. Adam Stardom is still having its month off, and due to scheduling, The Immortals is off this week. So let's just keep listening to this show, I guess. Also, let's take 5 at theartofmore.com, so you can email us, and The Immortals Pod is the Twitter account. And where can we find you, Eric?
Constant Diversion is my YouTube channel, and that's the only place you can find me. I'm not on Twitter.
No.
And I won't be.
No. I'm going to get you on Twitter. All right, well...
Constant Diversion's on Twitter.
Is that true?
I think so. I thought you were in the Twitter.
Did I? Well, look forward to more tweets from Constant Diversion. As I remember the password. Anywho, my name is Austin Luger.
My name's Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Did you have anything to drink before you went to the mill? Or smoke anything?
Oh, half a joint, a couple beers, you know. Nothing heavy.
While you were there?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't falling down drunk or anything.
How were you dressed?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means were you dressed provocatively? Showing a lot of cleavage, see-through blouse?
What the fuck difference does it matter how I was dressed? They tore it off of me.
But did how you dress make those guys think that they could have sex with you? Did you put on a show?
What the hell are you talking about? You saw me at the hospital. What do you think I asked for that? Is that what you think? If that's what you think, you get the fuck out of my house.
Why didn't you tell me that you had a record?
Fuck you. I ain't got no record.
You want to tell me about it?
All right. Look, I was helping my girlfriend move with a U-Haul, you know. We were going through Jersey, and we ran into this cop, right? And he sees we got a busted taillight. He pulls us over. He starts looking through her desk and all sorts of stuff she's got in the back, and he finds a half gram coke. It was nothing big, you know. It was her desk. It wasn't my desk. It was her stuff.
So why is it still in the books?
I don't know. You tell me. I mean, my record was definitely,
Expunged?
Yeah, expunged.
Have you ever made love to more than one man at a time?
What the fuck kind of question is that?
It's the kind of question you're going to be asked on the stand. You're also going to be asked if Larry or any other man has ever hit you and if you liked it. You're going to be asked about your drug bust and how many drinks a day you have to smooth out the edges and how many joints. And how often you go to bars alone, and whether or not you wear underwear when you go to them, and which diseases you've caught, and how many abortions you've had. And I will object to all those questions. And sometimes the judge will sustain me, but sometimes not.
That ain't fair.
Sarah, you're a witness. And it's the defense's job to show the jury that you're a rotten witness because you've got a rotten character.
I got a rotten character? You ain't gonna defend me because I'm some low-class bimbo, right?
I didn't say that.
Will those bastards go to jail?